eager to not only do this, but hear what they had to say, the questions they had, and, and all that. But, so where were you just coming from just now?
Just the table. I was at the table, and they had a golf cart, which went at 0.00001 miles per hour. And that's why I'm not here at 11 a.m. So
That's weird.
I could have walked faster than this golf cart, which I really should have said.
Stuck in the Delta.
Good. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, oh, I'm stuck in the Delta Force.
Yeah, right. I was in astrometrics lab with 7 earlier. That's why I'm late. Sorry. Yes. You remember the episode where 7? Well,
I remember all of 7 episodes.
Kim tries to hit on 7. Right? Harry's like into 7. He invites her down to the, I guess it was, where was it? It was the mess hall. And he's asking her to come down and check up on some calculations or something, right?
Sure.
Right. But it's his ruse to try to, hit on her. And then she calls his bluff, and the immortal words, she turns to Kim and says, "Do you wish to copulate?" And then Kim, and I'm reading the script for the first time, I'm like, "Oh yeah!" And then Harry Kim answers, ... Harry Kim stammers, "No." Who wrote this garbage? Why no?
You're an ensign for 7 years.
Yeah.
You can't
I can't even
copulate.
But she even asked. I wanted to, and she said, "Do you want to?" And Kim should have said, "Yes, ma'am." I will copulate. I'm the copulator, so no.
Sounds like consent to me.
It was, yeah. So we filmed that scene, and at the end of the scene, the director goes, "Cut." Jerry Ryan looks at me, and she's like, "Oh, you missed out." She scans all the, she looks around at all the different crew members, the sound guy, the cameraman. She goes, "Any takers?" And they're like, "Oh, me! I'll do the job." And so Kim was too much of a wussy boy. Okay.
It's funny you say that about the golf cart, though, because when I was heading over to talk to you at your table,
Yeah.
it comes barreling through from
Oh,
outside.
it barreled for you.
Oh, no, I was standing there and it ran through and dude almost ran me over. It's like, hey, where's my table? It was Luke Cage.
Oh, you.
I'm like, it's over there. He's like, all right, zoom. And he just tore right out into the main floor. I don't know if
It's
ran, people were jumping out of his way.
We were just, the guy that was driving me in that golf cart, they were just talking about that. They said, "We're gonna get in trouble because Mike Coulter, Luke Cage, stole the golf cart and started." So they were already talking about the time that you almost got run over.
I wasn't the only one.
And I said, God, I wish I could have been in a video film. Looking at Mike Coulter acting like a 14-year-old boy pulling donuts in a golf cart. And I think what they did was once he established that thing could go like a bat out of hell, they put some type of like, a governor on that, speed so it goes .000.
The thing is, no one wanted to say anything to him. They were like, hey!
Oh my God.
Let me over again.
I just want to say that thank you to all the fans that came up to my table yesterday. If you're here, applaud. I've had some amazing conversations with people here, and one of the great things about, I'm going to get a little serious real quick, and then we'll go back to fun, okay?
I can do serious.
Okay, good. Trek, to me, is probably the most important television on the planet because there are many people who have been affected by Trek in a positive way, okay? And usually I'll have one, every third or fourth convention I go to, someone will come up and say something. But at this convention, I had 3 separate people that had come up. One young man had served 2 tours of duty overseas in the military, and one of the worst years of his life overseas, he said, the only thing that kept him sane was Voyager, so watching Voyager. I had a lady who came up and talked about how Harry Kim, in a certain episode, had helped her overcome, her fear of being in public or socializing. She was able to be more open and more confident, and that actually happened more than once. So there's 4 people total. So thank you to all those stories, and thank you for being here today and for watching Star Trek. And I applaud you. Thank you so much.
You need to encourage me to love Star Trek.
Yeah, you are a fan of Trek, aren't you?
because it doesn't always go well. Because some people...
What was it?
Well, it seems harmless, but some people are like, that's not the only thing I've done, you know.
Oh.
What I asked you was, would you say, you know, I think I said, so how important is Trek to you, like in your life and your career? And you went, it put me on the map.
Put me on the map.
You know, it's how people know who I am. It's how you know my name. It's why I'm talking to you. And I'm like, yes. And
did you hold my hand like that yesterday too?
I might have.
Did we just?
I might have. What's amazing is that you were doing theater for so long, and then you did one, like I think you got one shot there at TV, and then the next year, Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek was my 30-second audition.
Yeah,
actually, it happened in
a
a year and a half.
30-second audition.
Yeah, it was. So I walk into the audition, and the casting director. Most people in Hollywood know her as being crazy, is the best way to put it. Her name is Nanda, and I walk in to see this woman who had a frisbee-sized ashtray. Frisbee-sized, and it just a mountain of cigarette butts in there. And I walked in, she's putting out that last cigarette. She's like, okay, so we start doing the audition, and I'm reading some sides from the pilot episode, and she stops me because I'm like reading from the script. I'm holding the sides, and she goes, "Stop! What are you doing?" I said, "I'm auditioning for you." "Why do you have the script in front of me?" "Because it's the first audition. Usually at a callback, that's when most actors memorize the lines." She's like, "Let me tell you a story." Nothing ever goes good after you hear that. "Let me tell you a story." And she said, "Andy Garcia, are you familiar with who Andy Garcia is?" I said, "Yes, I know, the actor Andy Garcia." She goes, I was the casting director on a film called 8 Million Ways to Die. I said, "I'm very familiar with that film. Yes, he played a Colombian drug lord." She goes, "That's correct. That was his first big role. When he came into his first audition, do you think he was unprepared like you?" I said, "I guess not." "That's right, he had it all memorized. And that's what makes him a star and you not." Now, that is not a vote of confidence from the casting director. I was so honestly, my feelings were hurt. I'm like, wow, I don't even know you. And so she said, "Get out of my office, go learn the lines, and come back in 15 minutes and do it again." And I was like, okay. So I walk out, I see the casting assistant, and she sees my face is very sullen, and I'm just like, And she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nan hates me. Your boss hates me." She goes, Tell me what happened. Tell me what happened." Well, I start doing the audition. She stops me. She says, "I'm not prepared." She talks about Andy Garcia and that he's a star because he was prepared and I'm not. And she just hurt my feelings. And she said, then what? And then she kicked me out to go learn them and come back. She goes, no, that means she loves you. She told you to come back. She loves you.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So you got to come back.
So then I looked at her, I said, "I'm so frazzled. I'm really frazzled. I'm going to ask you to go ask her if I can be rescheduled to come back another day," is what I said. And she goes, "You want me to do what?" Because Nan is a bit of a tough cookie, and evidently her casting assistant understood that too. And she goes, "I can't do that." I said, "You can't go ask her a question? I mean, I'm really frazzled." She goes, "All right, Garrett, I will go ask her, but to protect you, I need you to go outside into the alley. There's a dumpster there, a garbage dumpster. Hide behind the dumpster so the wrath of Nan won't, affect you. And in the meantime, if she says no, memorize your lines." I'm like, oh my God.
I thought she was going to ask you to fake puke in the alley. Yeah. Like, hey, no, he's in the alley.
Like a sympathy puke kind of? Okay. All right. So I go fine. I go out there, 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by. Then at the 10-minute mark, Libby, the casting assistant, comes around outside. And she's like, Garrett. I poke my head around the dumpster. And she's like, "She agreed. She rescheduled you." And she goes, "I'm telling you, she really loves you." And I'm going, no, I can't believe this. So then, the second callback audition, I go to the producers. I had 5 auditions total. So yeah, it was maybe 6 actually. And at one point, it was just producers and me, and I'm reading the scene where episode 1, Caretaker, Harry Kim is in the stairwell with Bolana Torres, and they both have been infected by the disease from the Caretaker. And so Harry is talking to Bolana, and he says, I can't believe it. My very first mission, I'm 70,000 light years away from home, and I'm going to die from this disease that I have, And this is the scene. He's completely broken and upset and sad, and you name it. So I'm doing the scene, and I'm supposed to be in pain from this disease, right? And as I'm doing it, because Nan is prepping me to go see the producers, she stops me again. She says, no! What is it with you actors? I'm like, oh my God, what's happening now? She goes, come over here. Do you understand that in this scene you're dying, that you're experiencing pain? Do you understand how to experience, to act pain? I said, well, come here. I go, what? I walk around to where she's at. She goes, roll up your sleeve. I'm like, what's happening? So I roll my sleeve up. She, give me your arm. She takes my arm. You guys know what an Indian burn is? She starts doing that to me. Really hard. She's got rings on and jewelry. It's just like gouging into me like barbed wire, I'm going, And she's like, she goes, does that hurt? I go, yes. She goes, do the scene. I go, I can't believe, first mission to 70,000 light years away from her. And I'm gonna die. She goes, that's how you do pain.
She took her cigarette.
Cigarette burns like on my head. That would have been bad. It was bad enough doing that, right?
Method acting.
So, I got back 4th, 5th audition, and then...
Wait, you had to do more.
I had more after that. I went to the producers. Now, this is what's crazy. It was down between me and an actor from New York City, young Asian kid. Another cool thing is, during one of the callbacks, as I'm walking into the office, the casting office, out walks Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I'm like, Short Round! Or if you like Goonies, Dana! Isn't he Dana in that? So I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, they read every Asian dude from here till Timbuktu. And I'm down to New York dude and me. Walk out.
Beat Short Round.
No. Short Round wasn't the last guy down. It was down with I'm just saying.
That would have been a young Ensign.
Yeah. So I literally come out and I said, what's going on? What's happening? And Libby, the casting assistant, says, New York kid is going back to New York. I'm like, I got it. She's like, not exactly. What does that mean? Well, they like you. But now they want to take 2 weeks off and audition 30-something-year-old Ensign Kims, an older, like 10 years older than you, and they're going to whittle that down to one guy, and you'll go head-to-head with him. I'm like, oh my God. So that's why it took so long, 6 auditions. And I finally, on the 6th audition, I beat out that one 30-something-year-old guy. And,
Who was that? Who was it?
It was a guy named Eric Steinberg. He was half Jewish, half Korean. So I think part of the reason why maybe I beat him out is because I looked more Asian than he did, maybe. I mean, that's probably, thank God. So that's, I beat out the Hal dude. So it was, it was one of those things that I was at the right place at the right time. The role was written for an Asian American, which is rare because in the 90s, 1995, I was the only Asian person that was a series regular on a TV show in the late 90s. There's no other dude, no other person out there. So, a bit of a groundbreaker at that time. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And to be perfectly honest with you, I got my dream job because I'm a sci-fi fan at heart. My first sci-fi that I ever saw, I was 8 years old when I saw original Star Wars in the theater in 1977. I fell in love with sci-fi after that and watched everything sci-fi after Star Wars, the introduction to sci-fi. So being a sci-fi fan and then an actor and then landing a sci-fi show, to me it was like, yes! I've made it to the top of the mountain, so to speak. So it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And living in Memphis, Tennessee for 8 years before I came out to California after college at UCLA, I literally faced a lot of racism, a lot of prejudice, a lot of bullying every day of my life for having this face, for not being Caucasian. And one of the main things that motivated me, and one of the reasons why I honestly feel that I found success so quickly, was because my motivation wasn't to be rich and famous. My motivation was to play a non-stereotypical role so that maybe someone watching it would then not bully an Asian kid like me that looked like me in the South again. So it was really, it was an honest motivation. And I got the role, yeah, it was amazing. Thank you. And I talked to the producers about that, and I said, and it's so wonderful. And they said, oh, well, if you have any concerns about anything being overtly Asian, like we don't want to offend you. And I said, yeah, just make sure that when I'm in the mess hall, I don't go up to the replicator and say, give me a bowl of chow mein, and then I want some kimchi, and I just
change it into Harry Jones.
Yeah. So I said, just don't make me do. So I think it was season 1. There's an episode where Kim goes down to a planet and he's in normal clothing. He's not in Starfleet uniform. And the wardrobe department, the producer said, yeah, go to wardrobe. They need to show you a piece of a garment that you're supposed to wear, your shirt, and it folds over, so it kind of looks a little Asian. So maybe I don't want you to be offended, and I want you to approve it. And so I went down there, and they showed me the garment, and yes, it folded over, but there were so many other things going on and patterns. I said, no, I'm actually, this is fine. This is not offensive at all. It's not like I'm wearing a karate gi, And then the wardrobe person goes, oh, by the way, this is a repurposed garment. It's actually been worn before by a Star Trek actor before this. I said, oh, who wore this? And she said, oh, Patrick Stewart. And I went, I can wear this as a turban, or I can play as a diaper. How would you like me to wear this? I'm taking this home, actually, and yeah, thank you. So, Patrick Stewart. Have you met him?
Yeah.
Where did you meet him?
At one of these.
Oh.
Yeah, in San Diego.
Oh, was he nice?
Oh, he's awesome. And he gets more awesome the older he gets, because he smokes a lot of pot now.
Does he? Okay, this brings me to a story.
I'll feed you my
So, the story is, I was at Victoria Comic-Con in Canada, in BC, 3 weeks ago. Some conventions I offer my services as a celebrity moderator, so I'll do basically your job, Mr. Bonaducci's job, and
I'll do your job. I would gladly be on Star Trek.
We'll swap.
You want to trade?
All right. So I actually moderated Dan Fogler from Fantastic Beasts, if you're familiar with that film, and he's so funny. In the movie, they establish him as he's a baker, right? He's trying to get a bank loan to open a bakery. And so this little kid asked the question. And the kid goes, yes, do you bake? And then Dan turned over to me like that, just gave me this little sly eye look. And he goes, only cookies. I bake. I bake right now. I'm baked now. Exactly. Oh my God.
Now, eventually, when we were talking, and we didn't have as much time as we do now, so maybe you can talk about it a little more.
Yeah.
That George Takei was a huge influence on you, being an Asian actor. What?
Oh my.
And that's what he did yesterday.
Yeah. Well, think about it. In the 60s, 1966, that's the only Asian male character that didn't speak with an accent. What else was going on then? Bonanza. Hop Sing. Hop Sing had an accent and very subservient and not someone you would say, wow, that's a role model, right? My role is, do I strive to be the valet of the Cartwright family? Is that what I want to do, Mr. Can I cook your food or wash your clothes? It's like, it's not good. And then you watch George Takei. He's there on the bridge, and he's got the nice resonant voice, no accent. Word 8, word 9. It's like, And the funny thing is, before he came out of the closet, there's a picture of him, a black and white photo of him at a convention with like 75 women around him. And they're all looking at him like, that voice. And I'm thinking, man, if they only knew. None of y'all have a chance. Like that's so funny.
Did you ever get to meet him?
Oh yeah, man. Oh, I met him. The funny thing was, I was the co-master of ceremonies for the OCA Los Angeles, an organization of Chinese Americans. And it was Lauren Tong, you know that actress, Lauren Tong? Joy Luck Club, one of the daughters on Friends. She was Ross's girlfriend for a while. So Lauren was the co-host, and she's a very small voice. So when they were about to have, the dinner was almost ending, the guy that ran the whole organization, the guy's going to start the program. Can you get up to the podium and start doing your thing? So we get up there, and Lauren goes, excuse me, we're about to start the program, and could everyone pay attention? And no one's paying attention to her. They're still eating, clanking glasses, laughing, and she's getting frustrated. She's like, okay, once again, can we please start? No one. And I say, Lauren, let me handle this. We need a little bit of George. She goes, George? Okay, so I get there. Would everyone please stop what you're doing right now? Stop eating, stop drinking, stop talking, and look up here. We're about to start the program now. The place is dead quiet, except for table number 1, special guest George Takei is doing this. Most people don't like to do impersonations for the people because they're afraid. Dan Fogler does a great, oh God, who's the actor who everyone does that talks like this? And, Joe Pesci. Yeah, Joe Pesci. What do you look like? Can you do it? You can probably do good Joe Pesci, right? Okay, so the walk-in, he does a great Christopher Walken. And I said, Dan, have you ever done Christopher Walken for Christopher Walken? He's like, oh no, man, I don't do that. Because like everyone goes like, that's not me, it doesn't sound like me, they get offended, so I don't do it. And I said, well, you know, you're missing out, you should, because I have no problem, I'll just do it right in front of them. I was actually the MC of the Congressional Asian American Caucus in Washington, D.C., which spoke to a bunch of congressmen and, you know, lawmakers. This is years ago, and the keynote speaker was President Clinton, right? So Clinton went through 17 pages of speech. So after I introduced him, I go backstage, and I've got Secret Service guys around me, and I'm like, hey, I want to work on the president's accent. How he talks, and so those guys help me. They're like, so I started talking about this, and I started getting a little bit, and they're like, a little slower, stretch it out. So the CIA guy, the Secret Service guys are helping me fine-tune my accent. So afterwards, he comes off the stage, and I walk up, and I go, Mr. President, I'd like to do my impersonation of you for you. And he's like, oh, go right ahead. So I remember growing up in Arkansas, my grandpa took me fishing, and I started doing this whole long thing, and he started laughing, and, you know, it's just me. Thank you.
By the way, if anyone has questions or impressions you would like him to do, because he has a lot of them.
I'll do one more right now, and then we can go on to something else. Okay. This is one thing. Everyone, when they watch Voyager, they assume that the only funny person on Voyager is the Doctor. But it's not true. They just didn't allow anyone else to be funny on Voyager, right? I always tell them, please, let the human characters be funny, right? The original series, at the end of every show, after the ship is not blown up, you see the camaraderie between all the characters got to be funny. But on Voyager, they kind of gave all the funniness to Bob Picardo, really, and a little bit to Neelix. So here's my Bob Picardo. Just remember, kids. Anybody can stargaze on the bridge, but the real action happens in sick bay. He was so happy when he got his mobile emitter. Bob Picardo, the actor, because he's up the bridge, right? It's 5 a.m. He's flitting around like a little schoolboy. He's like, hello, good morning, hello. I'm so happy to be here on the bridge, hello. And we bridge crew, we know, we call it bridge hell or bridge fury because it's literally the longest, most draining day you could ever have when you film on the bridge. It takes forever. So at the end of the day, I go up to Bob, I go, so Bob, what do you think of the bridge? He goes, I think I'd prefer sick bay. I don't really like the bridge anymore, so right, there you go. Okay, can we take some questions?
Yeah, we're about halfway through. We got a lot of questions, so let's get to them.
Yeah.
Is it on? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, you don't mind if I call you Harry. I know you're Garrett, but I'm going to call you Harry.
Call me Harry.
I am your ex-wife. How's it going?
Hi.
You didn't come over for potatoes.
Oh, that's right, potatoes. Yes, hi, ex-wife. Yeah.
That's okay, we had pizza.
I am so confused.
I am confused too. No, it's from a conversation we had earlier. She was joking about I didn't come to dinner and all this stuff. And, you know.
I didn't Trekkie.
Oh.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. Don't talk to him, I'm talking. Garrett, you can do whatever you want.
Don't be mean to my friend. Go ahead, go ahead.
I've been a Trekkie since I was a little kid. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, because you wouldn't know it anyway. Just keep going.
All right.
Alright, so I had all of them, and when you guys came out of Voyager, I fought it. I said, absolutely no, I will not watch it.
Why? Why did you say absolutely no?
Because I was used to the other guys, and then they're going to bring a girl on here. I said, a girl can't do it. When a girl came on, I was more happy with that show than I was the guys.
Yeah.
It was great. And you guys blew me out of the water, so great job. Love it. I watch it every day when it comes on.
Thank you.
So, good job.
Thank you so much. Did you know that right after we premiered in January of 1995, the production office voicemail was full. People had left countless number of messages. These are people that were channel surfing. These were people that were not Trek fans. They were channel surfing and came across Voyager on the premiere and decided to leave their opinion on the voicemail of the production office. Message after message was the same thing. How dare you allow a woman to be in command? How dare you? Another message, guess what? We're coming right down to Paramount Studios. We're gonna blow up the soundstation, kill all of you for doing this. So we had death threats, bomb threats, because we had a female captain. That's 1995, 1895 type of thinking. It's like unbelievable. But I will tell you this much. Star Trek Voyager is probably the most empowering show for any young lady or any woman to watch, because this happens a lot. I'll be signing autographs. A gentleman will be getting an autograph from me, and he'll bring his two daughters, ages 8, 9, and I'll say, do you watch Voyager with Daddy? Mm-mm. Okay, you're missing out. This is bonding time you could have with your father. Bonding time that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Even when, God forbid, Dad's not around, you'll still remember the time you watched Voyager with your dad. So you should watch it. And secondly, the captain is a girl, just like you. And whatever, it's Janeway or the highway. Okay? Very few shows on television have a woman who runs everything. She's the final word, okay? So if you watch every episode, little girl, with your dad, all the episodes, subconsciously it's gonna work on you. So when you grow up, you're gonna find a better husband and a better job. Because Janeway would not stand for a half-ass husband or a half-ass job.
Okay, so you have this most marvelous voice that you can manipulate. Are you, by any chance, a singer of any kind?
I am not a singer. I've never taken singing lessons, but I would like to at some point. I've always done accents and impersonations from a very young age. Growing up, my idol was a person by the name of Rich Little. For those of you that are old enough to know Rich Little. Rich Little is a gentleman who literally had in his pocket 1,000 voices. And some people that are, good at voices, you listen to him like, oh, that's a pretty good Johnny Carson. But Rich Little was like, that's dead on. I mean, he was that good. So I completely, I love doing accent impersonations, but I never got around to cultivating my singing voice. But I think that's something that I could do later in life,
As an ex-voice teacher, you have a voice that could sing.
Aww, thank you.
Hey, thank you. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Okay. So I've been to 2 of these things, and one was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I actually met George Takei, but...
Oh,
then,
I do remember you.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, so I went to one of these, and I had Michelle Nichols on stage. And I was like 11, okay? I'm like this. I'm like, do they feed your lines through that communicator thing? And she's like, no, honey, it's just a prompt. And so ultimately, I'm like, oh, okay, thanks.
Aww.
It's 11-year-old. So, anyways, but obviously, Star Trek, as you mentioned, has been a pioneer
Yeah.
in all of these things. And Michelle was kind of one of those premier people. I know she had a lot of that kind of thing going on. She's talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
And I wondered how that works, and have you had any talk with her about, you mentioned that with Asian Americans, being one of the first ones on TV at that time.
Yeah.
How does that feel? And then, of course, the obligatory, what's your favorite episode question?
Great. Okay. I do feel that Gene Roddenberry was somewhat of an alien in a way, because he was so forward-thinking, right? To have a cast member, the first African-American female that wasn't playing, some sort of subservient role, and to have George Takei on there as Sulu, it was a very, very versatile. Not versatile. What's the word I'm looking for? Diverse. Thank you. See, when you're 50, I turned 50 last year, so I turned 51 this year. When you get into this age range, you start forgetting words. You're like, what the heck was that word? Roddenberry cast such a diverse crew, and originally the first officer of the original series was a woman to begin with, right? But then NBC was like, no, that ain't happening. So they did have to change that. But Star Trek has always been groundbreaking in terms of having a diverse cast, and I do know the story with Michelle, and for those of you who don't know, she wanted to get off the show. She was like, you know what, this ain't happening for me. I think I want to go do other projects. And she met Martin Luther King, and he was like, you may not leave that show. And he was like, you gotta stay, and you've gotta represent. And she did, because that's a huge thing, right? So, and same for me. I didn't even think of myself as someone who was groundbreaking or someone who was doing good for, minorities everywhere, until I was at an award show years after Voyager was done. It was an Asian American award show in LA, and I bumped into the actor Daniel Day Kim, who guest starred on Voyager as an alien, but went on to do Lost and Hawaii Five-0, many more things. And at the time he was on Lost, and I walked up to him and I said, hey brother, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. You're such a nice guy, you deserve the success that you've found. Congratulations on Lost. And he looks at me, he's like, hey man, I gotta thank you. You kind of paved the way for me. I'm like, I'm gonna cry. I mean, it just like, I didn't even think of it that way. But to be considered a role model or someone who influenced and helped somebody else, that's something that really touches my heart. So, favorite episode of what? Voyager?
Favorite episode that you worked in the filming of, or maybe the favorite episode that's just you watch, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Code of Honor. Okay, some other people, only one guy knows that joke. Okay, so I would say favorite episode of Voyager would be Timeless for Kim. That's a good one. The ship crashes into the ice planet, right? Favorite episode that Kim's not focused on is probably Tinker Tinner Dr. Spy. The Doctor is hilarious in that whole dream sequence where he's messaging Janeway, and Janeway's like, I have a pain in my lower back, come over here. So
Questions on maximum. Yeah.
the first time I did the accent in front of Kate, of her accent, we were at the Museum of Television and Radio, and we were being honored. They were showing an episode of Voyager with a live audience watching with Q&A afterwards with the whole cast there. And the first question out of the gate, Garrett, heard that you do an impersonation of Kate Mulgrew, Captain Janeway. I'm like, shh. No. I'm like, I don't know that. She's like looking at me. I'm like, oh no. Could you please do it for us? She's like, yeah, go ahead and do it. Let's hear it right now. So I started doing it. She goes, I don't talk like that. I go, yes you do. No I don't. Yes you do.
Yes, she does.
Yes she does. Yes it is. It sounds a little bit like Katharine Hepburn went to a kid's party, grabbed a balloon with helium, took the helium, and then we're off to see the wizard, kind of a thing, comes out. I love her dearly, but that is what I hear, and I don't mean to, it's so funny because my mom was always emailing, please stop talking about Janeway. Don't do her impersonation. My mom was always so concerned that I'm offending her, But I think imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
And did she feel flattered?
No.
I had a huge problem with Voyager at first because I was used to, Shatner is like, kill you, and all that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Picard and his voice and Avery Brooks, and then I got Tuvok, come up here. And I'm like, Tuvok.
Oh, you do it too.
I
So I told this story at the, before she goes in, I've told this story at my table, but for those of you who didn't come to my table, years ago at a convention, a young lady in her 20s came up to my table and said, I've been watching Voyager since, I was 7 years old when I first saw the pilot episode. I watched all the episodes, I loved it from ages of 7 to 14, the whole 7 years. But I came here to tell you, I'm very embarrassed to say this, but the entire 7 years, I thought your name on the show was Handsome Kim. So, now if you think about it,
Handsome Kim?
Ensign, yeah.
Handsome Kim?
Handsome Kim. Ensign is kind of an obscure ranking because it's naval only. It's not the Air Force, it's not the Army, right? It's a naval ranking, it's the most junior officer. So everyone knows captain, lieutenant, but then ensign. So this little girl heard handsome for 7 years, which changes everything. If you watch Voyager after this panel, just imagine, instead of ensign, replace it with handsome. So now, instead of Janeway saying, status report ensign, this little girl heard, status report handsome. And I'm like,
in 1997, you were named one of People Magazine's 50
most beautiful people. What happened was I was at Denver doing a convention, and it was one of those stage Q&As that even the things that messed up went well. Everything just flowed. Armin Shimmerman, Cork, was sitting backstage, and I walked off, and Cork he said, Garrett, usually I never sit around for other, but I'm about to go on after you. I decided to come early. I heard your entire panel, and kiddo, how the hell am I going to follow that? I mean, he was impressed, and I was like, yes! And so somebody from People Magazine, somebody who knew somebody from People Magazine was in the audience that day, and they called them up, and I got the call, and in the history of Star Trek, it's pretty much Patrick Stewart and myself are the only two people, yeah. Oh, one other person, in the new Discovery, Asian captain woman. Michelle Yeoh. I was gonna say Maggie Yeoh. I'm like, oh my god, I'm playing the Walking Dead game on my phone, and Maggie's a character I'm playing with. So Maggie Yeoh, she's the one. Yes.
They're going to the movies going, Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Did they get on something? But
he's Asian. Okay. So Maggie Yeoh, Patrick Stewart, myself, 50 most beautiful people. So shooting that was crazy. And they gave me, the wardrobe they gave me these really tight silver pants that were so tight. My mom called me and she goes, are those your pants? I go, no mom, a wardrobe stylist gave them to me. I don't wear super I mean, you could see everything, okay? It was like, okay, thank you ma'am. But the funny thing was, after that year, 1997, 1998, the makeup artists at Voyager would make fun of me. They'd be like, yeah, I guess this year you're 97, so you didn't make 50 most, but we still love you. And then every year after that, they were pushing me lower down. I think you're at 175 most beautiful, so...
You need tighter pants.
I needed tighter pants.
Okay, lightning round, let's get through some.
Yes.
Actually, really quick, I'd like to thank you, Rick, because that was my question. So I was terrified to come up here, and I worked it all out in my head, and you just said what I was going to ask anyway.
What, the people thing?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to ask you. So I was going to, speaking of handsome, which was going to go perfect, is what I was going to say. I was going to go right into that. So you just answered my question.
Oh,
so
well, thank you. Who are you?
My name is Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you for your question that was taken by...
Sorry.
Mr. Babaducci. Okay.
Next.
All right. My question was, how do you feel about the Orville? Because I've seen some of the cast of Voyager and Star Trek Generation.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it?
Well, I actually visited the set of Orville because Robbie McNeil, Tom Paris, is directing now. He's directed every season. He's directed one episode of Orville. So I came by and I sat behind Robbie, and right next to Robbie was Seth MacFarlane. In between takes, when nothing was going on, I peered over Seth MacFarlane's shoulder to see him playing Candy Crush on his phone. And I asked him, dude, Candy Crush? He goes, gotta pass the time some way. And in fact, I have Pokemon Go going on right now. I'm two teams. I'm Mystic and Instinct. I'm two teams because if there's a Mystic gym, I use my instinct to shave off one and I put my Mystic in. It's horrible. Oh, what's your question? Sorry. Orville. Yes, thank you. Keep me on track. Thank you. Yeah, I've seen it. I honestly think what happened, and this is my conjecture, I think that Seth MacFarlane went to the television executives and said, "This is my pitch to you. I'm going to do Star Trek meets Family Guy," and they were like, "Sold. We'll buy that." And then he did a lot of funny in the beginning, but slowly every episode from the very first becomes less funny and more Star Trek because he's like, "I got to do my own Star Trek." I mean, really.
And then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to write myself in as captain.
Yeah, and I'll be captain.
And I'm going to have her as my interest and her."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he's controlling it all. It's funny because season 1 of Orville looked, I think, towards the end, more like TNG Voyager than season 1 of Discovery. It's like, whoa. So I like it. I've been watching it. Sorry? Oh yeah, I'd play a phaser on that show. Could I play the phaser, please? I'm ready.
I would only be on it under any circumstances whatsoever.
Yes.
By the way, we only have a few minutes, so let's see.
Power run. Yeah, let's go.
All right. Hello, Garrett.
Hey.
So question. I know all of the controls were just basically glass panels with like clear overlays on them.
Yes, and lit up and everything.
Nothing was labeled correctly except for little in-jokes. But did you,
Right.
over the course of the series, did you kind of like map your own controls onto them? Did you think like, oh, this button definitely does this in my mind, or
Absolutely
did they tell you?
not.
No.
And after I watched Galaxy Quest, and they were telling me like, yes, we've designed it to every move you did on the historical chronicles. I'm like, I'm screwed. Because I sit back there one day and I'm like, Christmas tree design. But this is so funny because you always know guest stars on Star Trek by how they press buttons. Okay, I swear to God, the guest stars either press too many or too few. Right? No, so I didn't have any, it was no rhyme or reason to what I pressed, so.
Good luck if an actual spaceship.
I know, I'm really nervous. I'm like, Christmas redesign.
Hi.
Hi.
Chris and Nicole Adam. We met you yesterday. Chris here actually is Irish and does an amazing accent. However, he's so terrified to actually go through with this.
Oh, no.
So I want to know, 1, what your favorite food is. 2, if you have any further roles coming up that are going to be out soon to look forward to seeing you in.
My favorite food, I like sushi. I like Middle Eastern food a lot. I like hummus, baba ganoush, that kind of stuff. But I really like the cuisines. I like all the cuisines of the world. I really do. I'm a fan of everything. And I hate it when people say, I don't like Chinese food. My favorite food's Italian food. I go, girl, Italian food is Chinese food. That came from China. Pasta, Chinese, okay? Pizza, you guys know that? Pizza, also Chinese-based too. Chinese, right? Italians just added the sauce, that was it, so, okay. And then, wait, the second part of the question was?
Do you have any roles coming out soon that we get to look forward to seeing you in?
Well, guys, this is what's crazy. In 2005, I left Hollywood on my own, volition, and I took a break to go travel. I traveled for 5 years. I saw 35 different countries. And I came back and said, I'm ready to go. Get back into acting in 2010. Then I picked up golf and played golf every day for 3 years straight. And then I was like, hey, I'm still gonna take a longer break. And that break extended all the way until 3 weeks ago at that Victoria convention. The manager for Malcolm McDowell and the manager for Skeet Ulrich is now, after a dinner and a conversation, is now my new manager. So I'm actually coming back in as we speak. What's that? What was the last one?
All right, let's do it quick.
Yeah,
Do it.
So we were walking around Comic-Con yesterday and I was wondering if you actually are walking around the floor with everybody else.
Seamus, where have you been? I lost you yesterday. I couldn't find you anywhere. I lost my lucky charms.
That's a good one. Thank you, brother.
It might be the last one. Let's go.
What's the time?
It's 11:49.
I thought I went to full hour.
It's not full hour.
We have to break for the next one to come.
God! Darn it.
You got here 11:04, man.
Oh! That stupid golf cart and Mike Coulter, Luke Cage, it's all his fault. All right.
Hi, Dad.
Hi. Quickly.
I was wondering if any of your roles in Voyager were improvised.
Improvised. Oh,
And
no.
if so, which one?
No, nothing was improvised. Everything was, all those lines were very specific. If we omitted one article, like a the in the line, we got a call, like, you didn't say the. So they would be very, yeah, they're horrible. Very, very bad. They were sticklers to the script. I've never ever worked on a project where you weren't able to add lib or add something in there. I think the only person they let add improvise was probably Picardo. The only one that didn't even throw things in. So, all right, thank you for that question. But
You're awesome.
yes.
Unfortunately,
Are we done?
Yeah.
Oh. Listen, guys, I'm at my table for the rest of the day, so come on by and say hello. If you have a question you didn't get to ask, I will gladly answer that. You don't have to buy anything. Just come by and say hi, okay? Thank you so much, Salt Lake City.